Shri Sai Ram. Thank you, Brother David, and thank you, Sister Anu, for the kind invitation to Region 3. It is, thank you for the opportunity for sharing Swami's words and sharing, having the opportunity to think about Swami and talk about Swami, probably one of the richest things we can do in this lifetime. So with humble pranams at the divine lotus feet of Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba, and salutations to all of the elders, brothers and sisters who are assembled over Zoom today. Jai Sai Ram and a happy Guru Poornima to you all. It is a really wonderful journey to Swami, where Swami introduces himself in our lives in various ways, and we get to either hear about him personally or hear about him through stories or have some interactions or read about him. And then he takes on, in almost all of our lives, this role of a guru or a teacher or a divine teacher and guide to help guide us along our paths in this lifetime. And then finally, of course, he takes on the form of everything. And he serves as not only a guide for the day-to-day things that we want to do in this lifetime, but he takes on the form of the eternal and divine guide that leads us on to bigger, better, and really the only purpose of why we have taken this human form. And that is to realize our inner divinity and realize Swami in and around all of us. So the first interaction that we have with Swami, in, however it may be, he takes on the form of someone who guides us and teaches us. And in the parlance of consulting and the business world, he becomes our coach, helping coach us on our day-to-day lives before we actually realize all of the bounties and the treasures that he has to offer for us as far as our spiritual well-being goes. So I wanted to start off on this very auspicious Guru Poornima gathering by sharing a quote of Swami, what Swami has actually said about Guru Poornima. So Swami has said about the significance of Guru Poornima, and I will share my screen just for a second. I want to make sure I get the quote exactly right. Swami says, Guru Poornima is observed today. Gu means darkness and Ru means dispelling. Guru means one who dispels darkness. Guru Purnima is the day on which one celebrates the dispersal of the darkness of ignorance from the mind. Hence, people should fill their minds with the all-embracing love principle. To experience the fullness of love, you have to fill your hearts completely with love. That will be the result of total devotion. Swami has said this during his divine discourse of Guru Purnima on July 22nd, 1994. So he has created a wonderful day by which the light of the moon dispels the darkness of ignorance in our hearts and our minds. And there is a path to a relationship with God as our guide and as our teacher that formulates on this day. I'm also, I love singing bhajans, as Brother David mentioned in his introduction. Music is an integral part of my life. And I was thinking about so many songs that lend itself so well to Guru Purnima. And one song that stood out for me, and that kind of circled around some of the thoughts I wanted to share today, was the song Guru Baba, Guru Baba. So as you may have heard, the song goes, Guru Baba, Guru Baba, Sharana Namostute Guru Baba, Vidyadayaka Guru Baba, Shanta Swarupa Guru Baba, Prashanta Swarupa Guru Baba, Prema Swarupa Guru Baba, Guruvara Guruvara Guru Baba, Jai Guruvara Guruvara Guru Baba. So this talks a lot about the worship and obedience that we pray at the lotus feet of our most supreme noble teacher, Swami. And although the song doesn't call out Swami by name, it says Baba. It can refer to any teacher in our hearts and my hearts. That is Swami, and that is the Guru Vara Guru Vara Guru Baba. And then I thought we could take three little things, which are actually big topics from this song. Vidya Dayaka Guru Baba. He grants us spiritual knowledge, Vidya. Shanta Swarupa, Prashanta Swarupa Guru Baba. He is the embodiment of peace. And Prashanta, Prashanti, eternal peace. And then Prema Swarupa Guru Baba. He is the embodiment of love. As you know, Swami did not refer to us as children or devotees or members of his organization. He called us with the very, very potent words of Prema Swarupulara, embodiments of divine love, or Divyatma Swarupulara, sometimes embodiment of the divine spiritual being in all of us. So, if we want to explore the relationship with the Guru on these lines, how can we go about doing that? So I thought I could start off by talking a little bit about the Prema Swarupulara part. How does Swami uh, instill in us the sound knowledge that we are nothing but embodiments of divine love? That love is our sacred duty. He has said this, it is your obligation to love, and to love more and more people more and more of the time. I may be paraphrasing, but that is kind of the summary of what Swami has said in one of his quotes. And he places a lot of emphasis on love. Love all, serve all is the way people who don't even know about Swami, or maybe subscribe to Swami as a divine being, know the quote, love all, serve all, as a central part of what he preaches, what he talks about. So that love that is so central, and that is so expectant from all of us, how does Swami bring about the importance of this love as a teacher, as a guide? I think the first thing he does is he gives it to us freely. He allows us to access that love in our lifetimes in a way that helps us glom on to this big, never ending, infinite supply source of love. Again, to me, that is Sri Satya Sai Baba, that is Bhagwan, that is Swami. For all of us, we may have that source of eternal love that we constantly go back to, and it recharges us, it gives us purpose. And when Swami does that to us, what he does is he gives us a glimpse of what is the level of love, the extent of love, the depth of love that is out there. And he teaches us that I have come on this earth to show you that this love is present, it can be tapped, it can be made your own, and it can be manifested. You can take that love and you can actually become the receptacle of the love, the embodiment of love, and you can pay it forward to many, many other people. So let's dwell a little bit on this. How do we get to this place of we ourselves are capable of manifesting Swami's love time and time and time again? We go back to how did we feel when we were in contact, when we were in the presence, when we were thinking about, when we were surrounded by this divine love? How did that love guide us to think about love and manifest that love in our daily lives? So I will go back to experiences and examples that Swami has placed either directly or indirectly in my life. So I can think about that very, very first trip to Prashanthi Nilayam. A number of things happened. That just during that trip, it was a trip with my family, my father, my mother, my sister, and I. I was probably a lad of about 13 or 14. My sister was about 20 or 21. And Swami, my mother was, as in a lot of families, she was the apex of coming to Swami and bringing the family with her towards Swami. I was a neutral entity at that point, being a younger child. I was very attached to bhajans. I was very attached to singing. But Swami as a form still hadn't played a very significant part in my life. My sister, being close to my mother, was closer to this concept of embracing Swami as a teacher and as divinity. And I would say my father is at the other extreme, a little bit on the skeptical side. So we have my mother, my sister, me, and my father. That is the spectrum. And then Swami, of course, during that trip, created a lot of little actions that just drew us closer to him, closer to him. But I can think of one major incident. So my sister, I will tell you that at the end of that trip, in the ensuing week, she just 180 degrees turned and became an ardent devotee of Swami. And if I have to describe her experience in one line, my sister was very interested in coming to the United States for a graduate degree. It was about, it was August, it was the time of Onam. So her applications for him and admissions were already being announced, and college was meant to start in a few weeks. And so she hadn't heard back from any university. So she was at a point in 1990 where she actually thought it was not going to happen that year. And basically, we were in Prashanthi Nilayam for Onam one Saturday, and the next Sunday, so a week and a day after, my sister was on a flight to the US. Swami blessed her during this trip, and she received admission, she received visa, we bought her flight ticket, she was on her way, and she was at college the Monday after next. So in 9 days, Swami just turned her life around, and my sister was a devotee for life. But I want to talk a little bit about kind of my and my father's experience on this trip. When we sat for darshan, we all received lovely, great darshan from Swami that day. This was in Prashanthi Nilayam. And then we left the darshan hall, and it was about 6 p.m. It was evening darshan, and we wanted to head to Chennai. We were driving. And our goal was to drive a significant portion and stop the night somewhere, and then Madanapalli and Kadri, and then we wanted to basically start the next morning and reach Chennai. That was the plan. So we started, the car was in really good shape. And as we left the mandir and we started going on the streets of Puttapatti, so outside Prashanthi Nilayam, we noticed that a group of people were actually huddled around a compound wall and were peering through kind of a grill in the compound wall. So my mother was very curious about what that was. So she said, please pull over. And my father reluctantly did so because he was keeping his eye on the clock. We needed to make a lot of time to get to our night stop. But we did pull over. And then that is the time we realized, somebody told us that this is the hostel. And actually this was, when we looked at it closely, we could see the lovely architecture, which is predominant in a lot of buildings within Prashanthi Nilayam. And that they said that Swami's car went in, and Swami's car actually was standing in the veranda because Swami had stepped out to go into the hostel, and all of the people were standing to catch a glimpse of Swami as he came back after finishing whatever work he had in the hostel. So again, my mother kind of said, "Hey, let us wait. Maybe we'll get an additional darshan of Swami." We complied, so we stood around, and sure enough, in 10 minutes, Swami came out, got into his car, and so Swami started approaching the door of the gates of the hostel. We also jumped into our car because we were like, okay, darshan is over, and it's time for us to go on our journey. Interestingly, when Swami left the hostel, he did not ask to turn left, but he asked to turn right. And he took the car through the village. So he actually went in the opposite direction of the mandir, started driving his driver, and the car just kind of was going to the village, and we were the car right behind Swami. So this was in 1990, where there was not a lot of Swami would move more freely within Prashanthi Nilayam and Puttapatti. So it was just his car on the road, his the silhouette of his hair, and then we were behind him, and we were the only two cars going on the street. Swami would go, and villagers would be jubilant to see their Lord approaching them. So they would drop their things, and they would kind of keep their hands folded and take darshan. And we were taking darshan from behind. Swami's car would stop. He would bless them. And so he did this for several miles, almost to where the airport is today. Swami drove out and gave lots of blessings to villagers. And then Swami's driver made a U-turn, and we had direct view of the Lord. Again, it was like a one-on-one car darshan. And we had direct view of the Lord, and we got the hand raised blessing as he kind of made his way back to Prashanthi Nilayam, and we made our way towards Chennai. We were very touched. I said in the very beginning that receptacle of love, when that love is imparted to us, it opens the, the innate divinity in us, and our heart actually opens out. And that experience to all of us is very divine. And, we probably even feel it today when we go to a temple, when we listen to a discourse, when we sit in bhajans, when we are in meditation. We probably have various ways of feeling that our hearts are filling up with love. And certainly, we couldn't put a very too fine a point on it, but we certainly knew that there was something happening to us. There was transformation, there was metamorphosis. Our hearts were expanding. And so we started driving towards with this feeling of great joy in our hearts. And then as we drove, we had about 4 hours of driving to go. It had become nighttime by then, the sun had set. And in the dark, my father started noticing that the car was getting heated up. So this is 1990 in India. So these are cars where there is the cold and hot indicator, and the indicator is moving towards hot, 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 hotter, and it's kind of reaching the max peak. And these are cars that actually have a radiator. So what you do is back in the day, you would unscrew the radiator cap, and you would have to pour water to cool down the radiator engine. And then that's how the engine would cool down and the heat indicator would drop. So my father was very worried that the car was heating up, because if the car heats up beyond a point, the engine can seize. And so he actually was quite concerned. And so he said, we have to pull over and we have to put some water in the radiator. So we said, okay, we pulled over. We were also informed that at that time, it was not very safe for a car to pull over on the side of the road in the night times, because of fear from, lots of miscreants on the side of the road that could create problems. But we did pull over. But then when we pulled over, we realized when my father went to open the radiator cap, the cap was stuck. It was impossible to open the cap. It was already kind of reaching 8 or 9 p.m. It was dark. So we were kind of between a rock and a hard place. You needed the engine to cool in order for us to drive the car safely. Yet we needed to we couldn't pour water in the radiator because the cap was stuck. So we didn't know what to do. And my father, who was the main driver at that point, was very concerned. So my mother brought up this point of, let us just go, let us sing bhajans, let us go. And again, there was a little bit of skepticism, but there was also the heart that was, telling us, your heart is full. Swami's given you this lovely darshan. He has led the way. Something special has happened. So we started singing bhajans. And at that time, our repertoire was probably 6 to 8 bhajans. So we sang these incessantly over and over. Swami must have been very pleased with the amount of practice we were getting in that car that day, because we sang Vittala, Vittala multiple times. We sang Srinivasa Venkatesa multiple times. We had the same, like I said, we knew 6 to 8 bhajans, and we sang them over and over and over again. And we noticed, while driving the car without water in the radiator, with us just focusing on the London driving, the indicator actually not just stood on hot, but it went from the hottest section and started cooling further and further and further and further until it was in a safe zone. And we comfortably drove the car to where we needed to be. So our prayers to Swami, our reliance on Swami, and our ability to focus on the divine name, despite the sticky situation we were in, helped us with Swami's grace to get to the place we needed to. So then we went there, and my dad actually found a motel, and he was walking in to check us in. And my mother actually went to the front of the car and opened the car, and she tried to open the radiator, and lo and behold, the radiator completely opened. The same radiator that all of us tried to open when the car was super hot and couldn't, even after we tried a number of ways, that radiator just opened up, and then we safely the next morning arrived at Chennai. So at that point, that was a turning point in our life where we certainly gave ourselves the space, and with Swami's grace, we alluded to Swami, we experienced Swami as someone who can be a divine teacher and who can help us on the path. And it's not until years later that I actually realized metaphorically, Swami leaving Prashanthi Nilayam and us following him in our car was showing us the way. The 4 of us as a family unit were changed, with Swami becoming an integral guide on our journey for the rest of our lives to this day. And, hopefully for the rest of this lifetime and more. that he continues to be the person who is leading us ahead of us and being the guide. And so, this was just one of the ways in which he showed his love to us, and that love had an effect of transformation in us. You know, there are various ways to show and experience this love, big ways, small ways. So I'll try to get to another incident many, many years later. So almost, I would say, this last incident was when I was 13 years old. So this was when I was 30 years old. So 17 years later, I was sitting in a train uh, in uh, in Europe, and actually, it was a train that was coming back from Bruges in Belgium back to Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And I was in the train, and I was noticing the time, and the time was a Sunday. And I would go to a center. Lived in Portland, Oregon at that time, and I would go to a center called the Beaverton Psi Center at that time. And the Beaverton Psi Center would meet with Aarti at about, say, 6:15 or so. And so I was just noticing the time on my watch, and I was thinking to myself, oh, it was late in the evening, because we were actually, I was out visiting all of these places, and I just was coming back to my hotel. I was thinking to myself, if I had been in Beaverton at this time, we would have been singing Aarti, and we would have experienced Swami's love. And the high point, the Aarti is the high point of the bhajan, irrespective of how many bhajans we sing. When we actually sing that last prayer in unison to Swami, that's when we're all in our element, because we know that we are offering ourselves in unison, without our ego, without a sense of doership or musicianship. We're just offering our obeisance to Swami. So I was thinking about that moment, and I was in this train, and suddenly I'm hearing Om Tat Sat Shri Narayanatu, somewhere in the middle, like Siddha Buddha Tu Skanda Vinayaka. And I'm like, I'm hearing things. Like, I'm traveling by myself. I'm coming back from Belgium to Netherlands. We're in this train, and in the moment when I'm having this thought, I'm hearing these words. And then it goes on to finish that particular chant. Atmalinga Shivatu. So it finishes that, and then the voice starts singing Jai Jagadish Hare Swami Satya Sai Hare. So that very arti that I was thinking about is now resounding in this coach. So I stood up, and I was looking out. I couldn't see any heads, so I actually had to. I stepped out of the area I was sitting in, and I walked up in the coach. And sure enough, I saw a couple sitting there, and it was an Asian lady and a Caucasian gentleman, and they were sitting with each other, and the Asian lady was the one singing. So I stood there, and they were probably thinking, what's going on here? And I said, I just immediately said Sairam, because she was singing, the Aarti. She had just finished the Aarti. I said, Sairam, this is so wonderful to hear, because I was just thinking about the Aarti in my center. And then this is the interesting thing, right? Swami's love brings two people we met each other for 30 seconds that day. We haven't seen each other, but this is so deep in my memory and in my heart, as a way in which Swami showed his omnipresence, or showed that as a guide, he is capable of guiding us everywhere, in all situations and at all times, with just a flicker of our thought. And so this was an example of that, with where she then went on to explain that she was engaged to this gentleman, and she's a Sai devotee from Malaysia, and she was explaining to him that she was going to bring him back to Malaysia and introduce him to her parents and her extended family. And she was a Sai devotee from her birth, and she was explaining to him about Swami, about Swami's love, about how they would do bhajans. And then she said, here, let me share a couple of places. You look at this universal multi-faith chant that we sing in the end. And then naturally it lent itself to Aarti. And she was kind of setting the stage for this fiance of hers. And then I show up saying, I was just thinking about this, and you started singing this. So imagine two devotees enjoying the love of the Lord. But really, really, when I think about it, who was this orchestrated for? It was for the fiance, who is the gentleman who is, engaged to this lady, who is just learning about Swami. And just like Swami, had his car go out and created this environment of, I am guiding you, I am your special teacher and friend, stick with me, right? That message that I felt that I got when I went to Prashanthi Nilayam for the first time. Here is this gentleman who's obviously thinking, oh, there is something surreal going on here. Like my fiance is talking about Swami and singing a song, and in this compartment at 11 p.m. at night, there's this other gentleman who's coming and joining her in kind of enjoying Swami's presence and Swami's personality and discussing what centers you go to and how he has played a part in our lives. I'm sure that gentleman thought, oh, there's something special here. This is not a coincidence. How maybe he thought it was how interesting or how even weird that this is happening. But there was something. I'm sure there was a little hook that he said, this is not a coincidence. How wonderful that this is happening suddenly. But also for the lady and me, it was a lovely experience of Swami's love flowing through, Swami guiding us with his love constantly. So Prema Swarupa Guru Baba, always showing his love to us in a number of different ways. Shanta Swarupa Guru Baba, Prashanta Swarupa Guru Baba. Swami instills in us, and that is the embodiment of peace, Shanta Swarupa, instills in us, again, by being a guru, by being a guide, a way of doing things where our external equilibrium is not meant to vary up and down too much. So if you look at our Swami orchestrates global programs. Swami, once there was a huge earthquake in Gujarat, and Swami was actually getting together tons, like more than 25 trucks with a lot of goods, grain and clothing and important commodities for the people who had suffered through this earthquake. And, we were all sitting in for darshan. At the end of darshan, Swami just walked up and he quickly went to the gate, where the gate is actually the gate that kind of faces the entrance of Prashanthi Nilayam. He just went up there and then we all craned our necks and we didn't even know that there were 25 trucks standing in line there. And Swami did the prayer and Swami blessed those trucks and broke a coconut. And again, he is a divine master. His protection is always there with the trucks. But he's showing us, again, being a guide, when you do things, do it properly, right? When you go on a journey, when you're offering something in the Lord's name, make sure that it is blessed with the Lord's presence and the Lord's name before it goes on his way. So he was showing us the way, guiding us the way to do that. But the other point is also no fanfare, no excitement, no confusion. Swami just walked. So, and then we noticed all of the things. So that level of maintaining equanimity and peace in the face of anything that happens in our lives, he teaches us time and time again. Even when he gives a stern word to us or to the students, it is a role he plays for that split second. You see his expression changing. He delivers it, and then you see that smoothing of his features and him being his divine form. He's a divine form right through, and his face is just back to its more neutral equilibrium, Shanta Swarupa personality. So when I think about that lesson where Swami continuously tells us how to maintain equanimity and peace in our lives, I think about an incident that happened to my parents. My parents used to live in Minnesota, in a town called Austin, Minnesota, which of course everybody when they said they lived in Austin would say, do you live in Texas? And then they would clarify that no, they live in Minnesota. And there also, Swami showed up in their lives. They thought they were the only Sai devotees in this entire town. And Swami sent Sai devotee after Sai devotee to them who lived there, who gave them photos, who gave them letters from Swami. They created a bhajan center there in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota. Swami continued to play a very important, integral part of their lives. But this incident, my parents lived 80 miles away from my sister, who, of course, I told you went to the US, got a graduate degree, then she started working there, and she's still to this day in this very town. And these two towns are 80 miles apart. So once after visiting my sister's house, my parents were coming back in their car. My dad was driving. My mom was sitting next to him. It was just the two of them in a blue Ford Escort. And they were playing Sai Bhajans, which was their practice. Back in that day, it was the CD player. So they had Sundaram CDs that they were playing. this one particular song played, and they very, very closely remember the song because not only then, but multiple other times in our lives, that song has been an indicator of um, some trouble to come. Swami kind of gives us a little bit of a, when that song plays, he puts us on high alert nowadays. That something is happening. But this was the first time it had happened. That song played, and then, unbeknownst to them, what had happened was there was a thunderstorm and a huge flash flood warning for I-90, which, as you know, is one of the main thoroughfares that runs between the West Coast, Seattle area, and Boston. It runs through Minnesota as well. So they are going through this particular. They are going through this particular I-90 stretch. They don't know that this thunderstorm and this particular flash flood warning is in effect, and so they are just driving. So if I they are when they're just driving, they keep on going, and suddenly, after this song ends, a huge wave of water comes up. This is the flash flood. It picks them up from the westbound lane of I-90, pushes them across the divide, across the eastbound lane of I-90. So these are interstate lanes, and into a ditch where water is filling up really, really rapidly. So the car is at an angle now, and they are in the front seat. They are trying. So they are trying to figure out what to do. The doors are jammed. They are surrounded by water. They try opening the doors. The doors are jammed. They are not able to get out. Water is trickling in, and they are seeing the front levels of the water are getting higher and higher. Luckily, their seat belt did not jam. So they quickly get out of their seat belts and they get to the back. So the car is at an angle. So the back is a little higher than the front. They get to the back, and then they are sitting in the back and speaking to each other. The one thing they observed was there was no panic. Because they had been chanting Swami's name, and because they were keeping Swami really close, Swami is and was always an integral part, especially when we drove. We would always chant and invoke Swami's blessings before we went on the road. They noticed this sense of calmness, and in a very calm voice, they start discussing with each other. I think my mother brings up the point of, oh, our son lives in this country, our daughter lives in this country, but in this moment, we can't call anybody, we can't reach out to anybody. We are so close to them proximally, distance-wise, but really we are not. We are in the middle of nowhere with no one, with Swami, and it looks like we're going to meet our end this way. And I think my dad kind of agrees with that, and also says, it's a moment for us to really focus on the Lord. The Lord is the one that's with us all times. So let us just chant Sai Ram. Let us just be with Swami, and let us be ready, for whatever happens. And to me, that is one of the big, big lessons that has come about in our lives purely because of Swami's presence in our life. The lack of panic and the lack of Swami is always with us. Even in the moment of death, it is but an incident in our lives. That level of guidance I would not imagine that we had even one small portion of that level of guidance without Swami in our lives, without him telling us that through his, Vidya Dayaka, he's giving us this spiritual lesson time and time again. Without him giving us a spiritual level lesson that we are more than our bodies, we are one with Swami, we would not have that moment of Shanta, that peace. In that moment, that could have potentially been a last moment in their lives. And this happened a good, I would say, 15 years ago. So with Swami's grace, there has been 15 more years after this particular incident happened. And my parents, actually, when they're starting to think about that and think about Swami, they're seeing the car slip further and further. They see a light shine out of one of the windows. When they look through the light, they see the formation of a policeman, the form of a policeman who is asking them to move away from a window. The policeman uses his instrument and he breaks the window. My parents don't know how to swim. So he guides first my mother and then my father and has them walking, brings them to a place where they can start walking, and then puts their feet under them and they wade through the water and they both make it to safety. They turn around and they see the car has slipped completely underwater, and is submerged. It is gone. Matter of seconds. The policeman then, wraps them up and brings them to Austin. And they start having a conversation with the policeman about, how are you even here? And he said that, they had actually evacuated 90. So the basically police had, run sirens and had people evacuate 90. So they got people off the road. And this policeman was actually on the westbound side of 90. So in the same direction my parents were originally going. Something, a voice in his head, and he cannot put a name to why he did this, told him, go back and go back on the east side. So he took an exit and went back on the east side of 90. And as he was coming down, sure enough, he sees this car, and he actually thought that, it was done. The car was submerged. It was, like I said, moments. He still stopped his car, stepped out, broke the window, saw these two senior citizens, helped them to safety. And that was meant to be. And so my parents profusely thanked Swami for his love and guidance and the grace that he provided, but also thanked him for providing them that moment of equanimity where they could focus on him, even though they thought it was their last moment at that time. The next morning, the newspapers in Austin carried a huge article on this that said, "Miracle saves immigrant couple from I-90 flash floods." And so, sure enough, we certainly thought it was a miracle. It was nice to get the corroboration from a local newspaper as well. Swami's grace in play. Swami, having been Prema Swarupa, Guru Baba, Shanta Swarupa, Prashanta Swarupa, Guru Papa, becomes the person who gives us that vidya or that spiritual knowledge, Vidya Dayaka Guru Baba. And this lesson he gives us from day one to the time, through many lives, including future lifetimes that we may have to assume in order to complete our journey. He is able to give us the things that we want and crave, and in our moment of worldly angst, we ask him for things, and he's able to guide us through that until he gets to the place where he says, "You act so that you can actually ask me for the things that I have come to give you." And that is to purify our hearts and set us on the path to salvation. These words actually I got from the definition of a Sadguru that Shirdi Sai Baba shared in Satcharita. The Sadguru purifies our hearts and sets us on the path to salvation. This is the education Swami continuously gives us. This is the education where he continuously points to us that we are capable of divine love, and we can embrace this time and time and time again. And, I think there is one time where I really, really felt that particular aspect manifest. And again, there are lots and lots of stories around this particular incident where in 2010, we went to Swami physically. The USA had a pilgrimage. We went as two groups, and the second group actually offered a children's play to Swami. And Swami sat through the entire play and blessed the children at the end of this play. And so this is again, when I think about how Swami comes back to play an important part in our lives. This is that, you're seeing the backdrop here. You're seeing all of the children with Swami in the center. Children are in costume. It was a Native American play. And so Swami, we had all of the children in costume who are part of the play and also part of the choir. All 10 regions of the United States participated. It was a offering with 145 different children who are all part of this photograph. But why I bring up this particular example when I think about how is Swami guiding us, and without making a huge pomp and show about it, how is he making us feel his worth and his value in our daily lives? Whenever, after this play, I have actually come across a lot of these kids who are now young adults. Some of them are starting families. This is a good 14 years ago, and there are some kids there who are 13 and 14 who are in their late 20s now. And my physical appearance has changed. I had a little bit of hair then, and now I shave my head. So sometimes they don't recognize me. But I have been in forums. There was one forum in Region 7 when I newly moved here. It was a kind of a picnic, side picnic, and I didn't know a lot of people in this region and kids. There were some younger adults who were in college who were sharing a story, and they started sharing the story about how their lives were transformed when they went to Puttaparthi as as 14-year-olds or 13-year-olds, and were a part of this play that they offered to Swami, and Swami spoke to them and took their picture, took a picture with them. So it goes back to, he has now, by doing this thing in 2010, little did we know, you saw the date, it was July 11th, 2010. Little did we know that in April 2011, Swami would leave his physical form. But this he did, and he ensured that we were able to go with 145 kids and offer this at his divine lotus feet, because he now has a direct connection to be a spiritual guide to each of these children. Each of these children now talk about Swami with their own experience, with their own sense of, oh, this is how I felt that day, and this is what happened when he said this to me, or this is what happened when I asked him for to touch his feet, or this is what we were closest to him in the photo, or standing behind him, and this is what he told us. So again, Swami's work of being a guide, a pathway, a connection point to the divine source continues on. And a number of children who went on this particular trip got the lessons directly from him, a number of lessons. One of the lessons is love my uncertainty. Another lesson is that they got was I may not be here, but the show must go on. You all have to do your sadhana, you all have to do your work. And there are lots of like little stories behind all of these things that happened on this particular trip. But one important thing that I wanted to kind of share to as a kind of a concluding thought. A lot of kids on this journey, as well as adults who participated, started having immense dreams of Swami before, during, and after this particular pilgrimage. That provided them this notion that, sure, where we went to India, we saw this divine form, we're now back in the US, but that connection is still with us. Because when you're in a dream, it is just you and him. So you feel this sense of, oh, this is personalized for me. This is my Swami. This is my guru, my teacher, my God, my father, my mother, however we want to relate to him. So that was an interesting and very important thing that happened that happened as a result of this. And I will share one dream that I personally had. I am not, I am not trained in dance. I am trained in Indian classical music, and I have sung in some choirs. So I've got some a notional kind of basic knowledge of Western music. I on this offering to Swami, there were lots of things that I and the other directors of the play had to really learn in order to make sure that we could communicate this to the kids and offer it to Swami. Learn to write music, learn to choreograph numbers, learn to bring about synergy between singing and live action, all kinds of things, scene changes, the importance of some Native American spiritual beliefs. All of this learning was only possible because Swami guided us, and Swami was giving us directions every step of the way through elders, through people who would say, "Oh, I just came across this book in the library," or "I just came across this elder who said who could teach us something. Here are some chants about the eagle." Like there was no coincidence. It was psi incidents after psi incidents that actually led us to this offering. And Swami says, and it's there in the Bible that the Lord can make a lame man walk and a mute man talk, and this was no exception. We were all mainly instruments, and Swami was doing all of the orchestration. But when we came back from this trip, this thought I want to leave you of, Swami is always with us and always orchestrating our lives, and how we should dedicate that to him. Is as soon as we came back, I had a dream in which, much unlike Sai Kulwanthal, there was an offering that we're doing in the auditorium, in the Purna Chandra auditorium right next to this. And again, I am conducting a choir on stage, and there are a number of kids singing, and Swami is sitting in his throne, in his chair downstairs. And as I am conducting it, I see Swami from the corner of my eye comes up to the stage on the side, but you have a job to do, so you can't stop. So I continue to conduct and I continue to conduct, and Swami is kind of looking at me and noticing this happen. In my dream, I continue to conduct. Swami comes closer and closer and closer. And then finally, at one point, I am exited from the dream. My physical form no longer is on the screen of this dream. There is only Swami in the spot I was standing in, conducting this entire choir of kids. The lessons are twofold. One is he is the doer, we are but an instrument. To think otherwise would be a folly. Swami is the doer, he's the wire puller, he is the facilitator, he is the director. The second thing is also that you actually have him to guide you every moment of your life. You have him to look for as the source, as the energy, and as the divine principle. And during this Guru Purnima, let us certainly dedicate our prayers so that he continues to guide us and continues to make sure that he is the source from which we are able to illumine our minds and our beings and be divine receptacles of his love. With that, Jai Sai Ram, happy Guru Purnima to everybody.